Malifaux 3rd Edition is, in my opinion, the best miniatures game on the market right now. The gameplay is diverse and deep with a playstyle for everybody. The models are so cool and there's a flavor for everybody. If you're watching this video, you probably want to agree with me. Welcome to the ultimate how to start Malifaux crash course. Roll that intro beat. Welcome to Corner Case. You're in the hobby corner. I'm your host, your guide through the breach, your best friend, Deck. And in this video, we're going to walk you through how to start Malifaux. We're going to go over resources, what you need to buy, how to set up the game, and below you'll see that the video is chapterized, so you can skip ahead to the chapters you like. Otherwise, I highly recommend, if you're not that familiar, to please bear with me and watch the whole thing. Based on my script, this video is about to be super long, so before we get into it, please, if you like what we're throwing up, like and subscribe. We're always desperate. Please comment any questions you have. And for those of you who are existing players, please actually watch through the video, because any comments that you make can potentially make this experience better for the new players coming in. I can add any of your positive and constructive comments into the description or into pinned comments, and all of us together, it takes a village. We'll make this experience good. Another note is that this is for Malifaux 3rd Edition. The year is 2022, time of recording. We will be updating this video in the description below and in a pinned comment as time goes on. And if there ever comes a day where this video becomes outdated, it will of course be replaced. But do trust that whenever you're watching this, all the updated resources will be below in the description and in the pinned comment. Before we actually get into how to start Malifaux, I feel like there's an elephant in the room that I have to address, and that is the community of Malifaux. The community is absolutely great. Now, why do I say this first? Because I know it is absolutely terrifying sometimes to hop into a new miniatures game. For those of you watching right now, either you have never played a miniatures game before, or maybe you are coming from a different miniatures game. Maybe you are coming from a game that has a pretty big playership, and time of recording, Malifaux does not have the biggest playership by far. And in some local areas, it may be difficult to find games. So I know that this is a pretty big topic for gamers. I know that it can be challenging to express interest in a game that you're not confident that you're going to get the support you need. So just know that, while I can't speak to your local area, I can speak to the online community at large for Malifaux is really awesome. I would say that of all the miniature games I play, there definitely are some of the most awesome hobbyists, greatest gamers, role players that I've seen out of any game. Just so much creativity, and the interaction with Weird as a company itself definitely contributes to that a lot. So what you'll be jumping into, this may not be the absolute marketing monstrosity that other companies and games might be, without saying who, but just know that the communication is pretty high in terms of getting news from Weird and interacting with the game. And the community is pretty tight and really fun internationally. So you have a good home here. That being said, I'm going to kick it off with resources. So again, time of recording, this might change as time goes on, but time of recording, all of these are what are on my radar, and I will be updating the description below. So resources. If you are somebody who likes the lore of the game, of course, you can always start at Weird's website. Weird's website has a very great faction breakdown, and per master model has a little lore description per each master as well. Also, as an official resource, there is the Breachside Broadcast, Malifaux's own podcast that is basically a living audiobook. They read the passages from their various stories that they've published of the game. So that's pretty good, comes out with regularity. And then a couple YouTube channels that are on my radar time of recording, Warlore, Defective Dice, and Arvandus are all pretty good. Of course, if you Google Malifaux lore, you'll probably stumble upon these yourself, time of recording. But I thought it was worth mentioning. I've interacted with these channels personally, and I think they're really awesome people. And Defective Dice, for example, has been building up a backlog per master videos. So these are all really great resources. Next, in terms of hobby, obviously I did a poll on our channel here, and I found that most people are posting to Instagram. However, other options would be A Weird Place on Facebook. That's AWYRD, A Weird Place. That's probably the best resource that I've seen in terms of getting to know other Malifaux hobbyists, seeing the paint jobs that other people are posting. And of course, you can't Google that stuff. So go on a weird place, best place. There's also r/Malifaux. And of course, always you can go onto the Play Weird Discord. So that's also a good resource to find other hobbyists as well. In terms of gaming content, there's actually quite a bit you can access. Lots of people talking about the gameplay. Off the top of my head, there are TNG Productions. They do a lot of bat reps. There's also Household Gamers Lunch Break Battle Report. Link again in the description. I think this is actually a pretty sweet bat rep. You wouldn't expect it, but it's just such a concise format and it's fun to watch. There is Third Floor Wars. They do really great content in terms of breaking down gameplay in specifics. And of course, it would be an absolute travesty to forget to mention Ash Barker over at Guerrilla Miniatures Games, doing the Lord's work all these years, posting bat reps of Malifaux. If you like that channel, you can always check out Malifaux on that channel as well. And lastly, not sure where to put this except to maybe call it a lifestyle category, is Steam Powered Scoundrels. That's a pretty popular Malifaux podcast. They do a lot of fun stuff on there. It's about as much as I'm going to say about that. And again, listen to the description. Anyone in the comments, please let me know if there's anything that I missed, and I will update in the description as time goes on. So next, meat of the video, where to start, what to buy. Now, there is a cop-out answer. The cop-out answer is, of course, buy the faction starter sets. Time of recording, Weird has just released the Neverborn starter box. So that includes a couple of models, a leader, and a couple of minions. And it also includes the deck of cards, a measuring widget, and all the tokens you need to play the game. That is, of course, an option. However, this video is assuming that you would like to really get invested in the lore, really get invested into the game, and really make a choice about what you want to do, how you want to express yourself within Malifaux. So as time goes on and Weird starts to flush out that assortment of starter boxes, we can review those in the future. However, today we are walking you through how to start, assuming no starter box. So the first thing is housekeeping. How do you start? Rules are free. So if you download the app, so go on the App Store, whichever one, you Google Malifaux, it will be the M3E Crew Builder. There will be another app in there if you're on iOS that looks like a Malifaux app. Pick the one that's on screen. Okay, that one. Once you go into this app, you can access all the rules for free. You can access all the rotating objectives. In Malifaux, those are called schemes and strategies, and they're listed under this thing called Gaining Grounds. You can look at those for free. You can look at absolutely all of the cards, so all of the playable models you can also access for free within this app. And because it's an app, these models will be updated as FAQs and errata happen throughout the game. So that's already a quick way to start. And I have to tell you, this is the best app of any miniatures game that I've seen by far. So please go ahead. Even if you're just thinking about playing the game, just download this app already. Also within the app, you can view news. So they push news. And because you can look at all the models, it kind of gives you an idea of like what you might want to play. I'm going to say now that it's hard to imagine what the play style is going to be like. But if you just want to get a feeling for the flavor of the crew or of the model, if you want to get a feeling for what it looks like, what keywords they're using, generally how the crew operates, I think this is a great place to start because it has everything all in one place. Next, in terms of housekeeping, you need a 3x3 play area. You need a measuring tape. Malifaux is played in inches. And you need cards. So you can use any old deck of playing cards. However, it's obviously way nicer to use like the Malifaux cards. And you need ski markers or just markers. Malifaux uses markers to abstract a lot of ideas like corpses, scrap piles, or just anything that was related to the objectives. Previous editions, it used a few more sizes, but nowadays they've consolidated pretty much to 30 millimeters as much as possible. And in the starter set, they provide 10. So that might be a good start. It's just like 30 millimeter markers, 10 of them. So that's it for housekeeping. Next is models. How do I buy models? The skinny answer is you buy a box that says the word core box on it. And then you look at the keyword on that box and you buy 2 other boxes that have that keyword. And generally that's going to be less than $100, and that's how you buy them. That's it. Well, That's like the real answer, but I'm going to walk you through like the context of how you get there, because this part is probably the most different part from other games, and I think it's worth going over. So please stick with me through this. I know that it may sound like quite a bit. It's a really simple idea. When you play Malifaux, you play as a leader or a master leading a crew. The very first thing you have to do is pick which master that you're going to play. Masters are associated with a keyword. So really you're picking which keyword you're going to play. If you're coming from a different game like 40K or Infinity, you may have like a different idea about like what a faction is. I have a quick diagram here of how this all works in Malifaux. So within Malifaux, there are factions. Each faction contains masters, and each master can hire a certain keyword. Models within the game have either a single or multiple keywords and can be hired by certain masters. So for example, there may be a model that has 2 keywords. It's hireable by 2 different masters. So that's what the keyword really is it tells you which models work with which masters. Masters are a part of factions. Masters are associated with keywords, and those keywords determine which models they can hire. Some models can be hired across multiple keywords, across multiple factions. So how do factions work in Malifaux is a little different than what you might be used to, but I think it's really fun. So at the start of a Malifaux game, you do what's called setting up the encounter. So you set up what deployment type, what the strategies and schemes are. In other games, that's called missions and objectives. That's how you score points. And after that, there's this little fun mini game where you each declare your faction. After you declare your faction, you both simultaneously reveal your master, and then after that, you actually build your crew. So that's a really important point in the game that creates a lot of input randomness, and I think that's part of what makes this game really fun, is that input randomness at the very start of the game makes it so that all your games are just a little bit different, and you're not coming to the game with a strictly better pre-built list. You are building your list on the fly based on the encounter and your opponent. An example thought process that could happen: oh, they're playing guild and we are playing the strategy ley lines. Assassinate scheme is on the table. I'm playing arcanist, so what do I think they're going to bring? What does that mean about what I should bring? What should I counter? What are they going to counter? How do I score this? Now, in a tournament setting, that's like generally going to be fixed. You might know ahead of time what the strategies and schemes are, but in general, if you're just playing casually with a friend, this is a part of the game. It makes the game really fun. To summarize, when you set up an encounter for a game, you and your opponent simultaneously declare faction, then you declare your master or leader, then you hire your crew. Factions still matter within Malifaux in regards to when you declare your faction, you can only declare masters within that faction for a game. That's how it works. It's a little bit different, but it makes a whole lot of fun. It's a fun way of balancing the game outside of just messing with points. I think that's something really important to discuss here, and we will discuss that later. So how do you actually pick your master? The cop-out answer, time of recording, there are almost or more than 40 masters across 8 different factions within Malifaux. So you have more than enough playstyles and flavors to choose from. So the cop-out answer is to just pick whichever one looks cool to you, whichever one feels good to you. But I know that that's kind of vague. So we'll start with resources here. If you go on to Weird's website, again, like I mentioned before, they have a great section that just does a little blurb in terms of both the lore and the gameplay per faction and at a master level. I think it's worth noting how amazing of a job Weird has really done to make their factions like super diverse and iconic, and all the masters within those factions, things that you absolutely will not see in any other game. While you're in this video, we'll do a quick summary of the factions and masters that are available to you, but I highly recommend checking out those other resources like we talked about, Weird's official website, and any other YouTube channels. Time of recording, Defective Dice is probably the best coverage, but you also have your Warlore and our Vandus. The first faction I'll introduce is the Guild. So the Guild are the big governing force within Malifaux. Think Star Wars Empire, but they're cowboys and exorcists. If you're in it to burn the heretics or bring on the riflemen, then this is the faction for you. If you play Magic the Gathering, then a master like Perdita Ortega could be like playing red. If you come from Warhammer 40k, then playing a master like Sonia Crid, she is a flame-wielding witch hunter. And another unique master within the guild is Nellie Cochran, who is the editor-in-chief at the guild's propaganda machine, the newspaper, the Malifaux Tattler. So you don't always see that in a war game. Arcanists are my main faction. The Arcanists are the Miners and Steamfitters Union, the Showgirls. This is where the steampunk summoners and primal magic wielders find a home. Notably, you have smuggler and showgirl extraordinaire Colette Dubois. You have ice sorceress and cult leader Rasputina. And you have the Union president, Tony Ironsides. So pretty diverse cast in terms of game style, walks of life, role within this world. I think this faction is awesome. And Union President, Ice Witch, and Showgirl are just things that you don't see in war games normally. So really awesome faction. Highly recommend you try it. The Neverborn. They were here first. These are the native inhabitants of Malifaux. They come from different backgrounds and they don't often take too kindly to humans. This faction is home to the Queen of the Neverborn, Titania, home to the Nephilim. And if you play Magic the Gathering, Pandora is probably the closest you can get in any war game to playing mono blue. So pretty interesting and unique and iconic faction to Malifaux. Outcasts are pretty self-explanatory. They live life outside the law. They are often mercenaries and sell swords. This faction is home to the premier glass cannon masters, the Victorias, and also bandit extraordinaire Parker Barrows. That's right, named after Bonnie and Clyde, and Leviticus of the Four Horsemen. So really cool Malifaux faction. If you're into cowboys, I think this is kind of the cowboy-y one. Mercenaries, the scum and villainy in Star Wars terms. The Bayou is a swamp to the east of Malifaux that is occupied by the chaotic gremlins. This is a great faction for people who like to have a little fun with their hobby. For those of you who are coming from 40k and are into orcs and the world building and hobby component of orcs, this might be the faction for you. You can play Ulix Turner and his army of hogs, pigs, and squealers. You can be Captain Zip with his flying pianos, or you can be Brewmaster, who does exactly what it says on the tin. 10 Thunders. They're kind of the big crime syndicate within Malifaux. This is kind of like your Yakuza kind of situation. You've got Misaki Katanaka and her band of ninjas and assassins. You have Jacob Lynch and his honeypot casino. And you have information specialist / brothel proprietor Yoko Hamasaki. I think it's important to note with this faction that there's probably some discussion about Orientalism, especially as an Asian American person. However, I will say that Malifaux has really shown that it's been on what I would consider the forefront of representation in terms of miniature games. I think they've shown that, while some of the stuff has not aged very well, they're doing their best to represent as positively as possible. So while I know that this faction may not be for everyone, if you are interested in it, I would say don't feel bad. If you had any doubts, you have permission to like it. In general, I would just trust Weird on this one. They've been pretty good. Next faction we have is the Explorer Society. This is a new faction as of Malifaux 3rd edition. It is home to Maxine Agassi. This faction seems like it's the closest to just a lot of Indiana Jones. As you can tell, I don't know much about it. I tried reading some of the lore. It's pretty mysterious. All I can say is if you want to play the Malisaurus Rex, this is the faction you got to play. And finally, the Resurrectionists. This is a cabal of necromancers. If you want to summon zombies, manipulate the undead, and experiment with flesh constructs, this is the faction for you. In the past, summoning was really powerful in Malifaux. I think they've kind of dialed that back a little bit, but this is kind of the faction for it. A lot of factions have access to it, but I would say out of all the miniature games I play, Malifaux has been the one that's been the most summoning, and I think it's just a super cool mechanic. Just imagine summoning a whole army of undead. You can do it in some games for sure, but there's a ton of different flavors of it in Malifaux. Resurrectionists is the place to be. If I might recommend some masters that are no longer eligible for tournament play, Ramos, he's an Arcanist, and Nicodem, he is a Reser. They were really powerful in second edition. You can still play them. They still have rules in third edition. They were kind of like the big summoners. Really fun play style that you don't really get in other games. Super iconic. As a summary, once you've selected your master/keyword, you can then go ahead and buy the relevant core box and 2 other boxes that have that keyword, and you'll be good. Generally, that core box plus 2 other boxes will get you to 50 soul stones. That's the size of a normal game. And generally speaking, that'll be under $100, and you're good to go. So a couple of things before I let you go. First, specifically for those of you who are into the gaming component of the hobby primarily, it will be dangerous for you to assume if you're coming from any other game or if you're new to the hobby, new to this game, it'll be dangerous for you to assume that you understand the play style just from reading comments or from reading Discord or even from looking at the cards. If you haven't played this game, you may be surprised by the play style that you think that you're investing in. I've definitely had friends who have jumped into the game with a certain master and keyword and just completely hated their experience. But then they jumped out and jumped back in with a different master and loved their experience, but they weren't expecting that. So if you really like the gameplay component and your hobby dollars are a little bit more efficient, then I would highly recommend using the app to set up some prototype games with crews that you're considering. Grab a friend, just even if you're just using markers, if you're using whatever to proxy, it'll kind of give you an idea of the playstyle before you invest, because you could be surprised, and I wouldn't want anyone to jump in really excited, think they're going to like it because of what they read online, and then end up not liking it. So if you're in it for the gameplay, please, the rules are free. All the model information is free. Just do yourself a favor and prototype the game a little bit. Just try it out. To kind of build on that, but to blow it back up in general for everybody, Malifaux is a game with a very streamlined core rule system, in my opinion. So in my opinion, you can learn Malifaux, the core rules, in a game or 2. You'll completely understand. So that's the low barrier. The high barrier is actually mastery of your master and their playstyle and the specific model-to-model interactions. So I hope what I've illustrated is that, you have 40 different sub-factions plus. That means 40 plus sub-factions to interact with each other for you to memorize the matchups for. Once you go into a master, if you're focused on gameplay and you want to get good, it'll actually take you a lot of games and a lot of matchups to understand how that master performs in different encounter setups. So this game is really, really replayable. So that's really cool. So depending on how you're approaching this game in this hobby, this could mean something different for you. For those of you who are pretty efficient, you don't want to spend too much money, then that means you're going to get a lot of fun and a lot of learning and a lot of gameplay out of a single crew. For those of you who want a little bit more diversity, it may mean that, you play 2 or 3 masters, but just know that one of them is still probably going to be your main. For those of you who are into the hobby primarily, it means, of course, you have 40 plus sub-factions to paint. It'll be about $100 for each one. That's more than enough variety. I say this just because it's a big contrast to, I think, a game like Infinity. So for those of you who are in Infinity now, my experience of Infinity is that the rule set is actually front-loaded with complexity. So once you overcome the complexity of the core rule set, which from my experience took about 5-ish games to just even get used to it, once you get good, you can kind of play almost any faction, with little ramp-up time. But that's completely different in Malifaux. You'll learn how to play almost immediately, but your ramp up per each master is actually pretty long. And I'm sure it gets better as you continue to play, but when you have 40 plus sub-factions, actually a lot of the game ends up being unexplored on your side in terms of gameplay. And so that's kind of cool. So I just thought that was worth talking about because it is unique to this game, and I wanted to set the proper expectation, so the choice of what master you play is a little bit kind of a serious choice because you end up spending a lot of time with it. So again, the rules are free. Please prototype games if you're unsure. Obviously, you can ask people online, but nothing is going to beat your personal experience. I hope that this video was helpful in getting you ramped up to play Malifaux. It's really fun. We have one of the best communities anywhere. And if you had any doubts, I hope that I was able to hopefully provide you with some answers. From my experience, I think the biggest doubt is just the player base. But just trust me that it's going to be really fun. And one big thing I learned in the last 5 years of playing Malifaux and more than that of playing tabletop games is Honestly, like groups will come and go. Your D&D group will come and go. Your 40K group will come and go because it's people. But the games and the models and the world building that you love, you're still going to love those things. And you can't lie to yourself that you're going to play another game because other people around you are playing it, even though you're not that stoked about it. If you're stoked about Malifaux and you're worried about that, you have an awesome community here. You have me, Deck, your best friend, and you have the great community online. So just take the leap. You won't regret it. Have fun with us. As always, do all the YouTube things. Please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Join the Discord, please. We beg you. We're always desperate. Join the Patreon if you would like to. Otherwise, appreciate any comments. It absolutely makes my day. I hope I made yours. Goodbye.
Please like and subscribe. We've been through enough.